Welcome, everybody, back to the Atheist Interviews. Once again, I am Jimmy, or you might know me as Mr. Atheist from my show, Dear Mr. Atheist on YouTube. That's on another channel, and that's already enough about me. We're going to get straight to introducing our guest for this week, 2 weeks, month. I don't remember how long ago the last one was. He is the National Field Organizer for American Atheists, as well as the co-founder of the Tri-State Free Thinkers. Please welcome Jim Helton. Say hello, Jim.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. Eric messaged me, I think about a week and a half ago, and asked if I'd be down, and I gave an enthusiastic yes, having just recently watched your speech at the American Atheists. Was it called the American Atheist Convention?
Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Where my daughter went on before me.
Yeah. That was the one. And so I had all kinds of questions, and we'll get into those here shortly about the Ark encounter and the protests and the billboards, as I'm sure are questions that you're used to getting now. But first, we start out with a thing called the Flash Interview, and it's basically 10 questions that'll help our viewers get a baseline of who you are, where you come from, all of that jazz. So if you are ready, we will get started.
I'm ready.
Very good. Just taking a second to make sure I actually am recording. For some reason I felt like I missed something, but no, we didn't. What part of the country do you live in now?
Northern Kentucky, near Cincinnati, Ohio.
Very cool. What part of the country were you raised in?
Same place.
Same place. Not bad. Were you born into a religious home? And if so, what was the religion that was practiced?
I was raised Catholic.
How big of a family do you come from?
Well, being in a Catholic family, my mom's side of the family has lots of brothers and sisters with lots of kids. I myself have brothers and sisters, so pretty big family. Okay,
not bad. How many brothers and sisters do you have? That's like a follow. That not one of the 10. Just curious.
I have a sister who passed away. I have a half sister, a half brother, and a stepsister.
Gotcha. So not bad. I come from a Mormon family. I have 12 siblings, so. Suck it. No,
I have a small family, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Compared
it's not a competition, but I'm losing.
Exactly. You get it. Okay. How seriously did your family take the religion, especially as you were growing up?
When I was growing up, pretty seriously. It was important that I went to church. I hated to go. I went to a Catholic school. They wanted me to go. I rebelled. I was forced to go. As I got older into my adulthood, it became more culturally Catholic.
Right.
To my mom, eventually she became an atheist about the same time I did.
Okay.
We weren't talking about it. It just kind of happened at the same time.
So that kind of answers the next question, which is, were you the first member of your immediate family to leave the religion?
Yes, I was the first that was open and vocal, but my mom was kind of around the same time that was taking that journey a different path.
That's so interesting to me. I actually probably follow up with that when we jump into the full interview. But when you left your religion, did you transition through other religions, other spiritualities, or whatever you want to call it? Or did you basically go straight from Catholicism to atheism?
I was Catholic. I dabbled in, looked at Wiccan stuff for a while. Yeah. But I kind of went from Catholic, and then I kind of went to just being a Christian, to a deist, to agnostic, to atheism. That took about 10 years.
Okay.
That journey. That process.
Mine's very similar. I had a couple of moments where I pretended to be Buddhist, but had no idea what any of that meant. So let's see. How old were you, or how long ago? So you don't have to do both. You don't have to age yourself if you don't want to. But how old were you, or how long ago was it that you became an atheist?
Just 5 to 6 years ago.
Okay. Very cool. And who is your favorite atheist author, communicator, or educator?
That's a tough one. I would say depends. Is that a cop-out?
Yes.
It really depends on what I am looking for. There are so many good ones I hate to name. If I'm looking for my average news, I look at Hemant Mehta and the Friendly Atheist. If I'm looking at books on sex, I refer to Daryl Ray. If I'm looking at social justice or racial issues, or I think a lot of the atheists have expertise, and I go to multiple places instead of getting all my information from one source. So There's just so many good people that I get my information from, not just one.
I'll let it go. I always go with author. I love Hitchens.
Okay, if I had to go author, yes.
Okay, all right.
Hitchens is why I became an atheist. Like, that was the book that put it over the top. So yeah,
he's irreplaceable.
Hitchens, favorite author. If you got to go author, yes.
It's such a bummer because I left Mormonism and was a full-fledged atheist by about 2013. I left Mormonism around 2010, but was doing that whole transition phase. Certainly by probably by 2012. 2013, I'm fully atheist and ready to tell people I'm atheist.
Yeah.
And it sucked to like find this person that was just like, oh, his debates and his books and I can't get enough of. And I probably had seen 2 or 3 of his debates and read 1 of his books before I realized he was dead. And I was just like, no. And
then Greta Christina, Why Are You Atheists So Angry? 99 Things That Pissed Off the Godless is one of my favorite books.
All right.
Well, my daughter did a speech with that in mind I forget where she was at, and it just kind of won me over, and I absolutely love that book.
Gotcha. Good deal. And then the final question of the Flash interview that we've been taking our time on, thereby voiding the name of it. But what if you could have dinner with any individual, present or in history, who would it be? I come with the thinkers.
Good question. With anybody.
And they have to tell you the truth. That's another part of it.
I'm trying to think if I had it. One of my favorite people I've met who I've talked to on multiple occasions is Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Okay.
And probably having a sit down dinner with him would be amazing. I've had multiple conversations with him, but he would be somebody I would love to have a sit down dinner with and continue some of the conversations we started.
I recently have been saying Brigham Young. Mine changes from time to time, but because that's where I come from, and with the caveat he has to tell the truth, I'd like to take that institution down. Matt said Jesus. That one's, he's like, and then if he doesn't show up, I know he never existed. But yeah. Bill
nice.
Nye, Bill Nye's up there on my list.
Current.
Yeah.
If I go past, I could probably think otherwise, but I was more thinking, I think tend to be in the future and present, not so much in the past.
I think Bill Nye is high on my list of present for sure. In fact, he might be number 1. He just seems like a cool dude to hang out with.
If I had to go in the past, I would say Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, yeah.
Because of some of the amazing things he did for history, but also some of the immoral things he did with slavery and that conflict that he had. And I would love to hear his thoughts and walk him through it, and seeing some of like the founding fathers of what they were dealing with, of the good and the bad, and having an atheist conversation with those people before it was a prominent thing, like with the knowledge we have today. I think that would be a fascinating conversation.
I'd have some Second Amendment questions for him too. Like, hey, when you guys were thinking of this, did you ever conceptualize that one day you could kill 50 people in a crowd with 1 gun in under 2 minutes? Like, I'd have some questions. I suspect I know the answers, but if they don't hear it directly from him, I don't think anyone's going to believe it. Well, that's great. That is the end of the Flash interview. So most of our viewers are already likely aware that one of the main concerns of American atheists is the separation of church and state. You yourself have been involved where that hasn't happened, where there's things, so cases related to like abortion rights, LGBT equality, prayer in public spaces. But my favorite has to be the actions of protest you guys did against the Ark encounter, the Answers in Genesis Museum, which is in Kentucky. So we're going to get back to that here in a second, but my first question is going to be, there are definitely a lot of Americans and American atheists right now who are extremely anxious about a Supreme Court judge that is likely about to be confirmed that has the potential to give a majority to religious motivation on the court. Do you and does American Atheist expect to see setbacks in some of these causes? And what should those who are apprehensive like myself be doing right now as far as in relation to, I mean, not just the Supreme Court, but local things that are happening that are religiously motivated and going into law?
We are very concerned. And for clarification, we defend people's right to believe whatever they want.
Right.
But that right ends when you try to impose that belief on the people. And that is clearly what's happening with some of the Supreme Court judges, with federal judges. And when you look at some of the judges being appointed, we have to be very careful now of what cases we choose to bring forth. Because while we think we may have precedent, we think we have a strong case, these rulings could change everything. And these courts, these cases are actually working their way through the court system right now in the hopes of overturning Roe versus Wade and some other fundamental principles and laws that we've had. And so it is vital that we call our representatives, email them, and let them know that we want a Supreme Court pick that will uphold the Constitution and the law and not a religious belief or a specific agenda.
Right. Yeah. And this is one of those tricky things where, like, both of us are here as representatives of nonprofits, so we have to be careful on so separate from this. The following is not necessarily the view of the Atheist Community of Austin. On my end, I am seeing, and I guess I just won't comment on whether or not I think it's wrong or not, but I genuinely think that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, Roe v. Wade will be overturned. And on top of that, something that hits a little more close to home, LGBT marriage and LGBT discrimination bills are going to be a lot more successful. The worst part is right now, in this lack of power checks, I don't see any way we're going to be able to do anything about it. It seems to me like his confirmation is coming and those things are imminent. Imminent meaning within the next year or two. So as those, if we have taken on the mindset of this is probably going to happen, is there anything else you think we should be doing in preparation for that? Get loud, get protesty. What would you say to those of us who are a little cynical?
Yeah, elections matter. The power of the people is in our voice, and our voice is through our vote. And who we vote in chooses the judges we have, chooses the laws of the land. So we must vote. And one of the things I say is the reason politicians cater to the religious right is because they are single issue voters. You ask anybody, what is the one issue evangelicals care about? Abortion.
Oh, yeah, abortion.
So it's very, it's easy to cater to them. Right. And they had an 86% voter turnout in 2016 with 81% voting for Trump. The largest voting bloc by religious affiliation is the non-religious. Right. We are the number one voting bloc, but you can depict that two ways and argue that. One, we don't vote, which we don't we have a low voter turnout. Right. And two, we're not single issue voters. You rattled off a half dozen issues real quick of things that we care about. Right. So if we want to challenge the religious right, we must become single issue voters. We must unite under the banner of equality. And if you're not for equal rights, we can't vote for you. Because the separation of religion and government, religion is using its power to discriminate against other people. These are all true equal rights issues. And that's something we must do. We must register people to vote, and we must turn out the vote. We have to.
I think, again, I'm in that tricky area of where I'm not going to say you should have voted for so-and-so. But what was really discouraging for me to see in the atheist community before this last election was a lot of, I'm not going to vote for either because they're both as bad as each other, which to me was not an actual evaluation of that statement. And getting upset over one person who might be corrupt or might suck, but also would at least have judges we care for, or a Department of Education secretary who isn't a garbage monster. That was really discouraging. And so that's kind of been, how do you get to your own community and say, even if you feel like there's this problem you can't get over, you have to think about the broader implication of not voting. And if the evangelical side continues to control all legal narratives in our country, get over that person used to, that's one of the funny ones too. Like, I am a member of the LGBT community. I also used to be opposed to gay marriage, so I'm not really upset at a candidate who used to be. How do we do the outreach and say, you got to start getting over some of these things and go with, when you have two choices, you have to pick one, or else you get two religious judges on the Supreme Court.
If I had the standard of everybody has to agree with me on everything, I would have no friends or nobody to talk to.
Yeah, right.
We have to look at, when you talk about lesser the evils on some of these candidates, they are not equal. Right. If they were equal, I would say, yes, if you want to talk about like, I won't mention names, but like, yeah. But these clearly aren't equal. The other thing I would do is then make a difference, make change. And one of the things the Tea Party did, the LA Times reported that in the 1990s, the Christian right hijacked over 2,000 school boards. And so what the Christian right did even before the Tea Party was they start going after school boards. And these are small elections, going after school boards, getting involved, even if you're not running, getting involved with your school boards. Because then what does that do? Once you have good candidates in your school board, then they tend to run for city councils. City councils usually tend to then run for mayors or state level legislation. And you start at a true grassroots activism. So that way, when you have a candidate, you're not voting for the lesser of the two evils. You're voting for a candidate that you supported from the beginning that you like as individuals. Now, as organizations, we can't do this. But as individual community members, we should absolutely be engaged in elections and things. And I would say start at the school board and city council levels. Start at that level where you can make a difference in a campaign. My son's school board was decided by 25 votes. Not the difference between winner and loser. Only 25 people voted.
Yeah. No, I get you. And that's a really interesting thing. And it's something that, again, not going to comment on if it's good or bad, but the GOP and the evangelicals understand to start in those rooted places. They understand that very well. And you see that actually happening with news outlets right now with Sinclair, an ultra right-wing group that is buying up local TV stations. So you think that the big right-wing news agency that's pushing the GOP's agenda is Fox News, but it's not. It's thousands of little news stations that Sinclair has bought up. Again, not commenting on whether or not that is 100% terrible. Go ahead.
One of the things we did is when we try to pass legislation or go after school boards or city councils, where I live, almost every candidate has run unopposed for the last 12 years on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, we went and called them out on issues, where we're allowed to, as a nonprofit, we can go after issues. Every single candidate that opposed us on these issues is now running opposed.
Good.
Good. Because these issues came to light.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we need to do is get involved in people are running. And when you do these smaller races, they're winnable. They're very winnable at a grassroots level.
Be a real part of the solution. Facebook and Twitter shares are great, but they're not near friggin' enough. That's another thing that frustrates the shit out of me, but I digress. By the way, you can swear on this program, in case I didn't already make that clear. Good, yeah. No, but all that's good. I really hope people heed that, because friggin' I just hope so. All right. So let's talk next about the Ark Encounter. For those you don't know what that is, it's a museum that Answers in Genesis basically says is like a replica, or at least one side of it is a replica of what the Ark might have looked like. And when you go inside, and it tells you the creation myth and the 6,000-year-old creationist myth, not the modern apologetics version. And you see dinosaurs playing with humans, and you get to see what the inside might have been like. And there's exhibits on how the Ark might have handled the poop of the animals. So, Jim, what could you possibly see wrong with that museum?
Where do I begin?
Yeah.
When we first found out about this, we were a little bit late to the game, where there was many of atheist bloggers writing about the problems of the Ark Encounter and YouTubers. But in the mainstream media, it was still a positive story, how this was a $100 million project and it was going to bring all this business and it was going to be great. And overall, it was positive. So we came up with an idea of how do we change the narrative? So we dropped a banner on their opening day that said Genocide and Incest Park. And it grabbed the world's attention. And when I say world, I mean the world. We had the New York Times, Miami Herald, Washington Post. I was doing Fox and Friends Live. We had 6 documentary film crews there. I was talking to Vice News. It's in the Bill Nye the Science Guy film that came out this year. It'll be in We Believe in Dinosaurs, which will come out next year. I was doing interviews from New Zealand, France, Germany, the UK, all over the world. Even the day after, the Christian Post, the Christian Daily, the Christian World News all reported of the problems of the Ark. And let me run down just a few of those for you for the people that don't know.
Absolutely.
They received up to $18 million in state tax funds while remaining their discriminatory hiring practices of not hiring LGBT, gay people, atheists, Catholics can't work there. If you're single, you have to sign a vow of chastity saying you won't have sex till you're married. The county gave them over 100 acres for $1. They gave them over $100,000 in cash. All employees in the area, not just at the Ark, and the surrounding area, have to pay 2% of their paychecks, go back to pay back the $65 million junk bond loan. 75%. I'm not done. 75% of the 75% of the real estate tax doesn't go towards the county or the city. It goes to pay back the $65 million junk bond loan. They've widened the highways. They've widened the off ramps. They sent a letter to the state saying that they are a for-profit business. They can receive state money. They sent a letter to the city saying they're a church. They don't have to pay taxes. Shall I continue? I can keep going.
Here in a moment, but holy, and I want to jump in with just this little tidbit that is something I became aware of recently. The parking lots are also empty. This attraction sucks. Nobody's going. I shouldn't say nobody, but they're not filling up. But anyway, go ahead.
So here's the one thing where I think I kind of want to bring attention to, and when I travel the country, I think that people don't understand the Ark Encounter and the finances of the way atheists have covered this issue. So let me ask you a question. Do you know how much money they generated, just the Ark Encounter, in 2017?
Based on what I've heard about attendance, it can't be actually paying back the state. I mean, it's got to be, I don't know the exact number, but
it's in the millions. If you had a guess.
$10 million.
Okay. $69 million.
Here, I'll retake it so that doesn't look so shitty. $100 million.
No, here's the thing. I like your $10 million answer because this is what most people say.
Okay.
It's $69 million. They are generating money hand over fist. It is not in financial trouble like people reported. It is doing financially very well. They had 37 million in ticket sales, 30 million in merchandise and other donations. What's happening is, though, the city and county gave away everything to get them there. They are on the verge of bankruptcy. So the city and county are not benefiting from this. It is bleeding them dry. They're on the verge of bankruptcy, but the Ark Encounter itself is generating a ton of money. Now, they had high expenses. They had about 65 million expenses, which is really, really high. And if they operate at that expense level, they will be in trouble. But they keep adding additions. It's brand new. I don't imagine they'll operate at that kind of level. Once they get it completed. They only did phase 1. So the conception that most atheists are reporting that this thing's going bankrupt or in trouble is just not true.
It's actually doing fine. And that's all from ticket sales, or do they have other financial outlets just besides from selling tickets? Now, I did hear at least that the ticket price is pretty dang high for something trying to spread the gospel.
It's around $40. Ticket sales were 37 million and other revenue was 30 million, like 32 million.
$40 to get in, and there's not even a roller coaster. What a joke.
Now, the one thing is the Creation Museum itself had double-digit decreases every year in attendance. Until the Ark Encounter opened, and now the Ark Encounter has, I don't know what the creationist numbers are, but the Creation Museum itself has increased its numbers by a lot because you can buy like one ticket and get into both places for a couple dollars more. So their attendance has increased greatly.
So you said it was 37 million attendees last year, or ticket sales?
No, ticket sales.
Is that the dollar amount or the individual number of tickets sold?
Now, here's where I think, and this is where the confusion and where atheists report it. Ken Ham, when he opened this park, said, we're going to do 2.5 million people, upwards of 3. He was bragging about 2.5 million people. So what happened is atheists start calling him out on this. saying there's not that many people. You're not generating over 2 million people. So then he started claiming he was getting 1 million people because they did a safety assessment fee of 50 cents per ticket. Okay. So we're able to do the math at 50 cents, how many people are going through. And it's less than 1 million people. It's around 800,000 or somewhere, 900,000, which is nowhere close to the 2.5 million that he promised.
Right.
You know, and then the next year he said, oh, we'll do over 2 million. We're going to double it. So Ken Ham is clearly lying, and atheists are calling him out because his estimates are so far off. And all the money and all the rewards that the state and city gave him were based on this $2 million number that he would generate. So atheists are calling him out on attendance numbers. But even then, it's not 1 million people, but 800,000. Now, kids are less than $40, but you can do the math at $40 and $20 tickets. It comes to $37 million. It's still a shit ton of money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that breaks my heart because I thought it was going to go downhill in another year or two, but I guess not. Yeah, you took it. You took my soul and you crushed it.
It's going to be here for a long time.
My non-existent soul.
Yeah.
As will Ken Ham, it seems, which, what a mess. So
let me address one other thing. If you don't mind.
Yeah. No,
I want to address the criticism we got for protesting in the yard. And we decided, we thought when we did this, it was a one-time event, right? But afterwards, you know, the further we got away from that protest, the press started turning more and more positive again based on the 1-year anniversary. So we protested again. We protested opening weekend on the anniversary every year, and we turned back the press negative. And people said, Jim, you're drawing attention to this thing. Just let it die. Just let it go. And what people don't understand is that this was a world news story before we came into the picture. What we did was we didn't bring them attention. We stole their press and turned it negative. And so we absolutely should bring protests. It's already a national story. We shouldn't let it go unchallenged.
Absolutely.
We're not bringing them press.
Absolutely. And I do think we were just having this conversation Sunday. I do think there are times where there is a local fringe group doing something that it can be damaging to expose them to larger platforms. I talked about this with Flat Earth. I'm not convinced that YouTubers like me aren't why Flat Earthers became a movement, because in making fun of them, we gave them exposure. But no, I absolutely agree with what you're talking about. I had heard about the Ark Encounter before, and like you were saying, it was all positive. It was all this money was going to be brought into the state. They also talked about, and so correct me if this is wrong, my impression is that the local businesses haven't been seeing an influx of business.
No, not at all. They've actually had multiple businesses go bankrupt and close shop. Even the mayor's business, which was around in his family for so long and generations, went out of business.
Yeah. Because at $40 a ticket, they don't have money to spend in the fucking town. Sorry. But yeah, no, that was an interesting thing too, that he was supposedly going to bring in all this business, and it hasn't. There's a bunch of closed and for lease signs up in the windows.
And just for fun, we adopted the highway in front of the Creation Museum Anarch, so we clean that every quarter as well, just as a sign of environmentally friendly and protest. So that's always a lot of fun.
That is awesome. Did you see a lot of fallout on using powerful words like incest and genocide, as though you saying those phrases were offensive and not the fact that they're literally teaching those in there?
Yeah, so the one thing is, you know, when I did most of the interviews on this, the genocide and incest what's grabbed everybody's attention. But our talking points were mainly equality, discrimination, separation of religion, government. That rarely got brought up. But on the occasion when it did, like I did some other radio interviews, and they said, Jim, we find that word, you know, genocide's offensive. And I said, then give me a better word to describe what happens, and I'll use it.
Yeah.
And to this day, not even religious people have not. And we've talked to religious people that go, it's not about genocide, incest. It's about, oh, yeah. Oh, I never thought of it that way. And one other criticism which we had is, you know, what if a child drives by and they see that? And that made me pause for a second. I did have to think about this for all about 60 seconds. Yeah. And I said, you know what? If my billboard causes a parent to have an uncomfortable conversation with their child about the Bible, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm not impressed by the concept of what if a child sees it, like, and yet we're letting kids going into churches where you might have a man mounted to a Roman torture device, sometimes with blood painted on, like, and then being told the stories of the incest and genocide, and being told about this wonderful book that includes the ways in which they could be sold as slaves if they're young girls.
It's not my story. I'm just calling it what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the record, in kindergarten, maybe it was first grade, but I remember in a public school, going into choir class and learning the song, "Who Built the Ark? Noah, Noah." Yeah. Yeah. It's not as though they're not telling the story with their spin on it already.
And I'll give you the one last thing is, some people said, well, you're just appealing to your base with this protest. And I was like, damn right. Because here's the thing. The people that come out to this every year, they come from all over the country, Washington, Oklahoma, Canada, all over the country. The people that do this we have 3 regional directors. We have multiple state directors, multiple assistant directors, countless affiliates. I lost track. And these are the people that are now running my local group, the Tri-State Freethinkers, as vice president and on board, because they came to this. So those are the ones running the community service projects, the educational meetings. We need those firebrand activists because those are the ones that are most likely running our local groups. Right. And so that's absolutely who is designed for to come out. And you should come out. I invite everybody. July 7th next year, 2019 on a Sunday. We'll make a whole weekend of it, but it is one of the best, most unique protests that you'll ever come to.
This will be in Kentucky again?
Kentucky, right
museum?
In front of the Ark Encounter, at the actual Ark Encounter.
I will do my best. We already spoke about how before, or for the other segment, how I enjoy the cold much more than the heat. But I will do my best to be in Kentucky on July 7th. You son of a bitch. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. Is it somewhat like a rally style protest where you have speakers, or is it picket style? What's the...
It's a combination of everything. So we kind of go offsite. Because Ken Ham bought up all the ground, it was very hard to protest. So the on and off ramp, the actual on and off ramp of 75, there, how they have those grass triangles between on and off ramps. Yeah. We actually take that over. We got permission from the state. We set up dozen or so tents from the Secular Coalition for America, American Atheists, Freedom from Religion. Anybody that wants to set up a tent, local or national, can come. We do live podcasts there. We have merchandise to sell. We have information. And we do that for about an hour where everybody can gather and meet people. And then we do about an hour of speakers. We have some of the top speakers from around the country come speak about this event. And then we march 2 by 2 all the way up to the Ark. We did it same sex the first year. And then we have our signs. Then we actually go right in front of the Ark with the Genocide and Incest Park banner, which we protest, depending on the heat, anywhere from a half hour to an hour, depending on the heat in July. And then we march 2 by 2 back to our protest site where we feed everybody for free. We have pizza, drinks. We bring another round of speakers, and then we wrap up the day. So it's about a 4-hour event. And it's unlike any protest because we try to do all the things with chants, rallies, speeches. Yeah. We do it all. And it's absolutely amazing and just a great time.
That sounds awesome. I'll do my best to be there. Channel content. Sorry, I'm a whore. But no, it absolutely does sound amazing. And I encourage anybody and any of my followers who have the resources to get out there to go there.
And one of my favorite quotes came from Planned Parenthood sponsored it the last couple of years where they officially sponsored it. And the state representative said, you're defunding women's health care in Kentucky, but you're spending money on this boat. And the quote she gave is, when equality is under attack, atheists show up. Yeah, and we have turned that quote from the Ark Encounter into T-shirt signs. This has become kind of our grassroots activism motto of atheists must show up and support anytime religion is being used to discriminate. And so I absolutely love the quote. And we'll send those signs. We will send that sign, when equality is under attack, the atheists show up, to any group that is going to protest or march for something or against something, absolutely for free, to any group in the country that's marching for atheists.
That's amazing. How I'll skip forward then to that question and then come back to what is, for people who are doing local protests, local movements, or even say want to open a local chapter of something atheist related, what's the best way? Is there a website or a resource from American Atheists they should check out first?
Yeah, if you go to atheist.org and then you can go to staff and click on my name and my contact information is there. You shoot me an email. American Atheist is dedicated to helping grassroots groups and grassroots activism like never before. Sure. We will provide resources, toolkits, education, training. I will personally go out there if need be to help groups with some of the three greatest challenges they face. And when I talk to groups around the country, they face three things. One, it's one or two people doing all the things. They need help with volunteers. Two, lack of diversity. And three, lack of money. And we can show them how to do these things. And the groups that are doing the best follow our ACEs program. That stands for activism, community, education, social. They're firing on all four cylinders. We're trying to take groups from being just a Facebook or meetup group, while those are good tools, to be a truly functional nonprofit that is engaged within their community and a force to be reckoned with and well respected in their community. And in doing so, you normalize atheism, and it's a game changer.
Are there local chapters of American Atheists, or is it just the national organization?
We do affiliates. So we have over 200 affiliates. You can be affiliated with any other organizations as well, but all you have to do is say, hey, Jim, I want to be an affiliate. I send you a link. It's a one-page fill out. It's pretty quick. Cool. Our goal is to take those affiliates and turn them into actual local partners where we're communicating. And, we have state directors in every state. Not in every state. We're trying to put in every state, but we want assistant directors in every city. Meaning I want to put a director, embed it within your group in your city that has access to we'll give them access to our Google Drive with all of our activism toolkits. We'll send them all the signs they need, buttons, stickers, t-shirts. We truly want to give them resources so that we have a connection with these groups and we know what the groups need. We're not here to dictate, to tell the groups what they have to do. We're just here to offer them a cafeteria plan of what they may need. They pick and choose, and then we'll help train them on overcoming the challenges that they face and they need the most.
Got it. Okay. Well, all right. So I want to return to, you talked about the discrimination practices at the ARC encounter, and you said it does include, and I was curious about the legal battle that followed. Where is that legal battle as far as at present they are allowed to discriminate? Am I wrong? Against people who are. So basically what they did to get around the law is the entrance gate is a for-profit company that can receive state and local money. The actual boat itself is a nonprofit which can receive tax-deductible donations and discriminate in their hiring practices. Got it. That's how they said it. And this was being fought when Kentucky originally was giving them the $18 million. The state of Kentucky said, no, we will give this to you as long as you promise you won't discriminate. Ken Ham sued the state of Kentucky for discriminating against him for his right to discriminate. And we got a new governor. We got Governor Bevin, who then replaced the transportation cabinet overnight, who opposed it. The lawsuit went through and they said, you know what? We're good. We're going to let them have the money and they can discriminate. We don't care. And so there is currently no suit. That is absurd. That's great. And that's actually, that's funny because that is a new level of apologetic I've noticed in other religions too. Like if you let this religious freedom bill or this religious discrimination bill go unchallenged, where you can't discriminate, the ones that the good versions of the bills, that you can't discriminate based on these things, that infringes on my religious liberty because my religion says I can discriminate. That's been just a crazy. It's really funny because people know I'm a liberal-minded person. I get a lot of like, if you don't like America, then get out, from a lot of people who they themselves don't realize that they're the ones with the un-American views. And the people who think that on religious grounds we should be able to discriminate, you're the people who should leave America. But I digress.
And one of the big initiatives we have was, because we did see a lot of infighting and a lot of conflict on what is an atheist issue. Right. And, and like, how do we get people in the atheist community? Because we do have Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, libertarians. How do we get them to agree on these issues? Because they seem to be so divided. So what we did was we redefined what is an atheist issue. And we did it by 3 questions. So the criteria we set up is this. The first question we ask on any issue, and start thinking about the issues that are important to you, is who's behind the issue? Who's driving this bus? And if the answer is religion, then this now becomes an atheist issue. The second question we ask is this an equal rights issue? Is religion being used to discriminate against people? Right. If the answer is yes, this is an atheist issue. And so what does that mean? Now we're talking about abortion, LGBTQ, science, sex education, women's equality. Religion's on the wrong side of every one of those. Right. And while we've been fighting what I call separation of religion government from the reactive in lawsuits, which is important, we now need to be proactive by passing comprehensive sex ed, passing non-discrimination ordinances. We need to be proactive and get engaged in our community on policies on these issues. And the third criteria, so like when I came on with American Atheist, I knew the separation, the lawsuits is what we did. But I proposed that, here's the new atheist issues, LGBT, women's, all those things, right? That was why I was hired. But never in a million years did I think that the weather and guns would be an atheist issue. So let me explain my third criteria. If religion is offered as the answer, it's now an atheist issue. So, for example, when you blame hurricanes on abortion and the gays,
right?
Now I need to be here. When your answer to school shootings is thoughts and prayers, or putting in God, 13 states require "In God We Trust" in every school.
Right.
This is a way to protect kids. So, if you want to divide a room, let me divide the atheist movement. You would talk about guns. I can divide it in half.
Right.
But what I've gotten most people to agree on is this: as atheists, and we need to not make these Democrat and liberal issues, Republican, Democrat. We need to make these atheist issues. So when it comes to guns, can we agree that thoughts and prayers don't keep students safe? The answer is we want evidence-based programs.
Right.
In God We Trust will not keep people safe. We need evidence-based solutions. So when our politicians do this, we must call them out. We must be in that space. And then if we turn our terminology from liberal, progressive, conservative to these are equal rights issues and we want evidence-based solutions, we can bring the Democrats and the Republicans together under one banner of equality and define what an atheist issue is. That way, when a local group's trying to decide, do we take on this issue? And instead of the board arguing about should they take on the issue, you can just lay out this criteria. Hey, does it meet any of this criteria? If it does, guess what? It's an atheist issue. Now you can move forward. Right. And it's done wonders in the local grassroots movement.
Did you, speaking of the weather, did you see that Pat Robertson cast his, I'm going to call it a spell of protection, but he called it a shield of protection over any believers in the path of this hurricane coming, the one that's about to hit the East Coast?
Just the believers, so the atheists are screwed. It's just a shield of believers.
I'm pretty sure it was strictly for believers. Let's see, a shield of protection. Yeah, he cited from the Bible when Jesus told the tempest to be still.
We'll see how that works out when it hits.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't just for believers. I mean, it will be when people die, but
it's one thing if it's a preacher or a Pat Robertson. But what's scary is our politicians are doing this. In Florida, when they had the school shooting, and they're like, we need to do something about guns. Now, you can have the argument, should we do something about guns or not do something about guns? That's fine to have that conversation.
Right. Absolutely.
But when you decide as a politician and as a community, yes, we're going to do something about guns, the answer can't be thoughts and prayers and in God we trust. We need evidence-based solutions. Now, I'm not going to get into what those evidence-based solutions is, but that needs to be our answer. And as a movement, while I'm talking to atheists saying these are atheist issues, when I'm in the public, I'm not bringing religion into this. What I am saying is, hey, we want evidence-based solutions.
Right. And for clarification, he said it was over parts where innocent people are bracing for the hurricane. So I'm sure his definition of innocent, you wouldn't use that clarifier if you didn't have something there. That's a good one. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing on these issues is, while what I call the reactive things like removing Bibles and crosses, that receives a lot of negative press from the mainstream media, which we should continue to do, don't get me wrong. But when we're going after sex education, 95% of the public is for comprehensive sex ed.
Right.
66% is for LGBTQ. Women's rights, like abortion, these issues are positive. If you want to normalize atheism, go after these issues that the majority of the public agrees with you. And so this is what I love about this initiative and these issues. It's positive. The community likes it. And we've normalized atheism in cities and communities that have gone after these issues in public and had an impact. It's where atheists can openly speak, where the mayor's asking them to come speak. Politicians are welcoming the atheist community. They're asking to speak at groups in front of 10,000, 15,000. Atheists can show up and speak at any of these meetings in the communities they're engaged in, even with the religious community. They're being treated equally, and it's just an amazing thing to see.
It's been a great evolution, especially from the previous conception, which was that atheists are a bunch of rabble rousers and going on Hannity to yell at him about Christmas, for example. Anyway, so last question about the ARC encounter. Did you get to meet Ken Ham at all? This is just a question for me.
So I've ran into him.
Okay.
We've definitely been within a few feet.
Yeah.
So after we did the ARC protest, Bill Nye was touring. He got an invite to tour the ARC encounter.
Right.
The Bill Nye film crew and Bill invited myself and my family to go tour the ARC. So I got to tour it with them. And at the very end of it, Bill Nye turns to me and says, "Jim, I can't believe they let you in." And then he proceeded to take like 20 selfies with my kids and taught them how to do a proper selfie. And
awesome.
Ken Ham behind him, scowling in every picture, looking pissed off. So Ken Ham and I have met more than once, but we have not exchanged words or conversation at all.
Ken Ham,
he is not a fan of mine.
He does generally have resting bitch face, but I think I've actually seen the scowl you're talking about in some of the videos. He did seem to be. The only time the guy seems to be happy is when he's lying to children, and that's about it.
Yeah, I woke up at 6:30 in the morning of him mad tweeting about me for an hour about the Genocide Incest Park billboard when he caught wind of it, and he was pissed. Nice. And all I'll say is this: if you think he's pissed about that, the American Atheist Convention is coming to Cincinnati, which right near Northern Kentucky, where he is, Easter weekend of 2019. And wait till he sees the billboards we're going to put up near his park. And I can't wait to see his comments when those billboards go up this Christmas.
Hell yeah. That's exciting. You know, after we've cut and we're not recording anymore, I'm going to want the inside scoop here. I'm just saying. So, and we've already kind of gone over this, but just to end on, the best bit of advice you can give to somebody who knows they want to be more active in the community, maybe the way they find their local communities, the places they should look, places they should go, not necessarily the ways that they should vote, but where they should be getting more involved politically as well. In summary, essentially.
If you want to get involved, please reach out to me and contact me, and American Atheists. We want to give you resources to help you succeed. A lot of people want to do things, but they don't know what things to do. They don't know how to do it. They're facing challenges and frustrations, and we can help you. We have resources. We know how to do this. I started a group 5 years ago from scratch with 12 people and has 2,700 members now and meets 25 times a month. Like, I understand what these local grassroots issues are, and that's why I've been so effective in training people, because I understand that because I've done it.
Right.
And we need people to get engaged. We need directors in every city. When I started, we had about 10 or less state directors, and now counting our assistant directors in cities, we have over 50 in less than a year. And we want that number to be over 100 next year. So we want people to get engaged. We are here to help. We have resources. Please contact us and utilize us as a resource.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, Jim. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this interview, there are more segments to come. They're a little more fun, a little more gamish, and a little more lighthearted, less depressing about the ARC being apparently successful. That hurt me. But anyway, thank you again, Jim, for joining. And to everyone watching, remember, stay skeptical, my friends.